Thank you. Now to introduce tonight's speaker. Stella Lucia Volpe, Dr. Volpe, serves as a professor and chair of the Department of Nutrition Sciences at Drexel. She's a nutritionist and exercise physiologist whose work on obesity and diabetes prevention, body composition, bone mineral density, mineral metabolism, and exercise represent more than a decade of consistent funding. Prior to the beginning of her appointment as professor and chair in January of 2011 at Drexel, Dr. Volpe was in the faculty of the University of Pennsylvania from 2004 to 2010. Prior to that appointment, Dr. Volpe was on the faculty of the University of Massachusetts from 1994 to 2003.
Dr. Volpe's research focuses on the prevention of obesity and diabetes across the lifespan. Her three distinct areas of approaching the obesity and diabetes epidemics are mineral metabolism, exercise and diet trials, and changing the environment to encourage healthier eating and increase physical activity. Her interventions include changing portion sizes in cafeterias and making physical activity more a part of a person's day to implement changes in behavior. Dr. Volpe has also researched the effect of a low-impact exercise program on weight loss in elderly African American women. She is presently conducting a randomized controlled trial on the effect of magnesium on the metabolic syndrome. And Gloria? Is Gloria here?
There's another portion. I'll say it for you, Gloria. Okay, please.
She's still on the Danube.
She's still on the Danube, right? Yeah. It's cocktail hour on the Danube. Okay, Dr. Volpe is a faculty member of the Physiology of the Body Compartment Fellowship Program in the Department of Neuroscience, Human Nutrition, and Food at the University degli Studi Tor Vergata, Roma, Italia. She is additionally selected to be a member of the Executive Committee for the International Doctoral Degree in Physiology and Nutrition at the University degli Studi Tor Vergata, Roma, Italia. Dr. Volpe speaks internationally, nationally, regionally, locally about her research, as well as general nutrition and exercise principles to help people improve their lifestyles. She is an associate editor of the American College of Sports Medicine's Health and Fitness Journal. Dr. Volpe was selected to be a member of the President's Council on Fitness, Sports, Nutrition, Science Board. It is our pleasure to introduce Dr. Volpe, whose topic this evening is obesity and diabetes prevention. What does the research say? Dr. Volpe.
With that Italian. Just have to get myself set here. Okay, can you all hear me okay? Usually people don't have trouble. An honor to be here, an honor to be the first of this Bayada series, I have to tell you, and learning that they were Italian, of course. Gloria, right? It's only Italians who can speak in this series. So I'm sorry for you non-Italians that there won't be a chance for you. But honestly, it's an honor, and I'm so glad I got to meet you this evening for the first time because I've heard so much about Bayada. I congratulate you award winners in the front row. If I end up spitting on you at some point during my talk, I apologize for that up front. Really, thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time. I know it's late in the evening, and for my students and faculty who've come in my department, it means so much to me, but to all of you, thanks. So today I'll walk you through a little bit of research here that I've done. Hopefully I won't bore you, and I hope I do this the right way. Oh, but Scott, it needs to turn on, doesn't it? I think the power is here. I know how to do this. It's on. Thank you. You need a PhD for that. You do. So, you know, in the United States, I know that's cute, but let me just tell you, 63% of Americans are overweight or obese. And so I'm going to walk you through these slides that many of you may have seen, and I know people in my department most certainly have. But the Centers for Disease Control and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, put together these maps starting way back in 1985. And so what they did was they were tabulating data on obesity in each state. And they did that by body mass index, which is not the best way, but for population, it's a pretty good way to estimate obesity. So what I want to show you, so BMI greater than or equal to 30 kilograms per meter squared, considered obese. And in this first map, which is 1985, you could see here that the white means that they had no data for those states at the time. The lighter blue is more that less than 10% of individuals in those states were obese. And in the, I'm sorry to those of you, my NC staters, Jennifer Quinlan, Robin Danowski, but this is the Carolina blue I call, is 10 to 14% of people in those states are obese. So now I'm going to walk you through and just let these slides do the talking, okay? So you can see here, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91 is when we get a new color. So now we get, because now in these states, and you could see they tend to be in certain regions where there might be, poorer states, poorer nutrition. 15 to 19% of people in those states now are obese. Now, not overweight and obese, but obese. 92, 93, 94, 95, 96. Now 97, we add another color. We have to add yellow. And greater than or equal to 20% of people in these states are obese. 98, 99, I know. See how powerful this is? Oh, now 2001. I don't know what went on during these years, but you could see this jump. So now in 2001, another color is added, this, I guess, orange. Greater than or equal to 25% of people in those states, in that state, that's Mississippi, yes, Mississippi, are obese. 2002, 3, 4. Now we have another color. This actually is like red with dots on it, but greater than or equal to 30% of people in those states are obese. 2006, 7. Notice Colorado, they always stand out as the healthiest state. 2008, 2009, 2010. Now, this gets different. These aren't my maps, these are CDC maps. When they got to 2011 and onward, the data changed just a bit, so I guess they had to change the maps. I thought the other ones were prettier, especially because I went to Virginia Tech, and so those are Virginia Tech colors. So go Hokies. If you see here, they still now had to add greater than or equal to 35%. But once again, kind of clustered, you see these states that have the greater amounts of obesity. I'll take you to 12 and 13. Those are all the data that they have presented on their website. But I'm really glad I heard your response, because it reminds us, right, of how much our country has become obese. And I'm hopefully going to take you through some of the reasons why I hope I can help that change. But I always think I'm going to change the world, but I don't know that that's going to happen. But obesity is a precursor of many other diseases. You already know that. But what my research focuses more on is obesity toward the metabolic syndrome, toward insulin resistance, and diabetes. And just one more set of maps for you, and I promise I'll be done with the maps. But I'm showing this because if you look at the top, those are just 3 obesity maps, 94, 2000, 2013. And on the bottom, these are the diabetes maps. So you could see that diabetes, type 2 diabetes mellitus, parallels the increase in obesity. Not a surprise. But when people come to us, and those of us in our department who study obesity, they come to us like this, and they want to go to this in about 3 weeks, right? Like, I want those six-pack abs, Stella. I want to be like that. And I remind them it didn't take you 3 weeks to get there. It didn't take you 3 weeks to get up there, so it's going to take you a lot longer to maintain a healthy body weight. So I'm going to walk you through some of my research. Some of it's older, some of it's newer, some of it I still have to publish. But if you look to your left, as the Bayadas so eloquently introduced me, is one of my areas is mineral supplementation, and then diet, exercise, and education, I call it. And then the third is this environmental change. And all of that I do across the lifespan. I'm a nerd, so I have to put this stupid nerdy slide up. You won't think it's funny, but on the bottom it says, late that night, Professor Robinson's laboratory was overrun by hostile elements. Get it? Minerals, elements, not so funny. The Bayadas aren't laughing, that's not a good thing. If the people who are hosting this don't laugh at your dumb jokes, not a good thing. All right, so chromium was one of the, well, actually, yes. I mean, actually not the first mineral. The first mineral I studied was boron, but chromium was one of the minerals that I studied early on in my career. And so why chromium? Well, it's a component of this protein called chromodulin. And what chromodulin helps your body do is to help the insulin work to bring glucose into the cells. So that's a good thing, right? Like that can be very helpful. But really what, it also enhances protein synthesis. So supposedly it can do some good things for your body. And I say supposedly because it's not a bad thing, but again, people think more is better with everything. These are the chromium requirements. They're fairly low. And despite that, about 10 million people per year supplement with chromium, spending about $150 million per year. And it's the largest selling mineral still after calcium. I know. And when you see my data, you'll ask why. Because it doesn't really do much. So there's this supplement called Chromium Picolinate. And for those of you who may or may not know, anytime you take a supplement, it has to be chelated or bound to something. So you can't just have a supplement in a bottle and as chromium. It must be bound to something. So in this case, it's bound to picolinate. And there have been no data to say picolinate's the best absorber of chromium, but it's sort of been thought that. And picolinate is a natural derivative of an amino acid called tryptophan. That's the one that makes you kind of tired after you eat. And again, as I said, it's believed to enhance chromium absorption. So magically, this pill, we should all be taking it clearly from this slide. It increases our muscle mass, supposedly, increases our energy, might help us decrease body weight and increase metabolic rate. So there's the premise behind why people were studying chromium for weight loss and why I sort of jumped on that bandwagon, because I study minerals, I study obesity. What could we do to be different, though, from the other researchers? So previous researchers sort of didn't dig into it as much, and I'm not saying that my study's perfect by any means. I'm always my own worst critic with my research. But we wanted to go a little deeper than what others did. So what we wanted to do is, the previous researchers studied men, and they studied athletes, and they said that chromium improved athletic muscle mass. So I said, you know what, no, I want to study middle-aged women who are overweight or obese, and we're going to evaluate all these parameters. Now, I wasn't trying to fish for anything. I had reasons for studying the things on the right, but I'm only highlighting for you body weight and resting metabolic rate because of the topic tonight. So who were they? They were 44 women, an average body mass index between 27 and 41. It was a short study, 12 weeks, simply because we were paralleling other studies that had been done at the time. We gave them a pretty high dose of chromium because it's a pretty safe mineral, and we wanted to see, can we have an effect? So it was double-blind, placebo-controlled trial. It was funded by a company, and I always tell my students that it doesn't necessarily mean that I threw my soul to the devil. I always make sure that companies understand we don't work for them, and that we'll publish whatever our results were. And so the training protocol was 12 weeks, 2 days per week, and they weight lifted first, and what they did was upper and lower body weight training. It was all supervised by my students and me. And it was very safe. We taught them how to do things properly, and we tested them on what we call their 1 repetition maximum, the maximum amount of weight that they can lift once, and we took a percentage of that, 60% of that. So they did 2 sets of 10 to 12 repetitions on each piece of equipment, and then when they increased their weight, we would increase it by about 10 pounds. After that, we went walking with them for 30 minutes, and we took their pulse at the beginning and at every 10 minutes, and then at the end. We made them exercise between 60 to 80% of what we call their predicted maximal heart rate, or 220 minus your age. And we did that because that's a pretty safe range. So we did 2 things. We added weight training, we added walking, but remember, we had a placebo group and we had a chromium group. And this is just a little bit of the schematic. So at baseline, we measured the resting metabolic rate. And let me just stop to say what that is. So we have this thing in our laboratory called a metabolic cart. And what that metabolic cart is, and some of you may know this, but I don't want to assume anything. So a metabolic cart measures your metabolism. And so the metabolic rate is the energy you need just to stay alive. And so we measure them for about 30 minutes when they're fasted, and it tells us the calories you need. And so just extending to the Bayadas, we can certainly do that for you in our lab if you'd like to come and visit us. But after maybe we go to that Italian restaurant, or before we go to the Italian restaurant. Yeah. And so then we measured body composition via underwater weighing, and then we did blood and urinary collections just at pre and post, and then midway we did urine collections too. We do urine collections when we do mineral supplementation research because that is one other way that allows us to know, are they taking the supplement? Now, we don't analyze these during the study because this was double blind. So the way we actually analyze if they're actually taking the supplements is we'd have them bring back their bottles. Not the best way. They could empty their bottles and tell us they took them. But generally, our participants are fairly honest. So here's what their characteristics look like. And as a researcher, you're always really happy that at baseline, when there are no differences between your participants. And so they were randomized nicely. We also did a randomization so that we could mix their BMIs up a bit, so that not everybody with a high BMI was in one group. And so you could see here there's nothing exciting. There were no changes in body weight over time because of the chromium, and no changes in resting metabolic rate because of the chromium. So you're like, great, Stella, so glad you're showing us these data. But I'm showing you these data because, and my students will often say this to me, do we still publish this, Dr. Volpe? I'm like, of course you still publish no changes, because if people don't see that there are no changes, then no one will ever know that. You can't just publish the good stuff, quote unquote. So what we found was in any of the parameters actually that we measured, even the blood parameters of zinc and iron and glucose, we were hoping for changes in that. No changes occurred due to the chromium supplementation. So another mineral that I'm finished studying actually was with magnesium. And I really got interested in magnesium when I was asked to write a review paper about it. And I found not that I didn't know about it, but how much it impacts insulin sensitivity. And so I'm throwing this up here because many of you probably know what the metabolic syndrome is, and you know that to the left are the general criteria, to the right are the categorical cut points, but you have to have 3 out of the 5 of these to be considered to have metabolic syndrome. And it's not a goal you want, but it's just something to tell you that this is, yeah, I'm not trying to tell you that we should strive for this. We don't want that. But these are the criteria. And so I thought, well, what if we try a trial with magnesium supplementation and magnesium? Now, mind you, others had done this before, but I wanted, again, to do something a little bit more unique. So it had been done in other countries, and nothing really had been done here. So I said, all right, let's do a supplementation study, again, double-blind, placebo-controlled, but to study the effects of insulin sensitivity, of magnesium on insulin sensitivity, and then concentrations of these levels of glucose, lipids, C-reactive protein, adiponectin, which is closely related to glucose uptake and insulin sensitivity, as well as blood pressure. By the way, I know that blood pressure sort of seems off to the right there, but it actually, magnesium can affect blood pressure in a positive way. So what we did was we double-blind, placebo-controlled, 360 milligrams per day, or an identical-looking placebo, and we had a 6-month study with 1-month follow-up. It was a pretty intense study because the individuals, this was done at Penn, and the individuals would come in and they had to get a frequently sampled intravenous glucose tolerance test done. But I'm getting ahead of myself because actually they first had to come in and get their urine tested because we needed to see if they were magnesium deficient. So you all know that in the hospital, serum magnesium is really what's taken, but it's not the best measure of magnesium status. The 3 better measures, the best, is a urinary magnesium loading test, where you give individuals through an IV magnesium, and then you collect their urine over a 4 to 24-hour period. Ionized magnesium is another great way, as is red blood cell magnesium. And so we first had to find out, were they deficient, which a lot of previous studies didn't always evaluate. So we brought them in, we did the magnesium loading test, so they had a full day kind of at the CTRC at Penn, and then if we found out that they were deficient, which meant that they retained 80% or more of their magnesium, then they come back and we do this frequently sampled glucose tolerance test, which basically is about an 8-hour test, right? So they get blood taken, they have 2 IVs in, and they have blood taken in their arm over several periods of time. Then the nurse infuses glucose in, takes more blood, and then she infuses insulin in, takes more blood, because that's what's helping us test for insulin sensitivity. We do this via this thing below there, homeostasis model assessment of insulin resistance index, or HOMA-IR. All that makes me sound really smart, but. So minerals, I told you, is one arm. Another arm is this just sort of general diet and exercise intervention. And so this was one where we evaluated the effect of exercise alone plus exercise and diet versus diet alone. Okay, and we wanted to see what was most effective. Now, probably you all can guess, right? What do you think? Diet plus exercise. But we did this on those old Nordic track ski machines. Do you remember those, some of you in the room? So we did that because it allowed people to have upper and lower body motion as opposed to just a treadmill, as opposed to maybe even an elliptical. It was a little bit different, plus it was funded by Nordic Track. But So that was very helpful. We kind of had no choice, right, did we? But we measured all of these parameters, but I will only highlight body weight for sake of time and the focus of this presentation. So who were they? They were 90 overweight and obese sedentary men and women, about 44 years of age. And again, as I told you, they were randomly assigned and again, stratified based on their body mass index so that not everybody with a high BMI got into one group. And it was a 6-month training study, and then we followed them up for 9 and 12 months. So I will try to be quick with you so I don't bore you, but we did train them, and then we built them up from 3 days a week to 5 days a week, those in the the exercise and diet plus exercise group. The diet group didn't get a diet. They were taught by me about heart-healthy eating, and we met pretty much weekly, and then every other week, and then monthly, and then weaned off. So these data show you sort of what you'd expect in some ways, right? So at 6 and 9 months, you could see the diet plus exercise group significantly decrease their body weight. But at the follow-up, what did we see? Sadly in my heart, the typical recidivism of obesity returning to where they started. It looks like they all started with the same body weight. This is just because we use it as a covariate, so they all didn't start there. So this is change in body weight. And the men, slightly the same. I mean, they had significance only at the 9-month time point, but right back. And I'll tell you, as a researcher, it's very hard, right? Because again, you want everybody to stay where they are, and you want everybody to be motivated. But I would get pictures from them with like their cat sleeping on their Nordic tracks, with their clothes hanging on their Nordic tracks, because they'd say to me, Stella, can't wait till we take these home. And me, being the quiet, reserved person I am, not giving my opinion, I would say to them, if you don't exercise the same time every day, you're not going to do it. So because again, they were like, and so it's really important. My next slide will show you that support system is also really important. Doesn't surprise any of you in this room, right? If you tell a friend you're going to meet them at 6 in the morning to run or walk and you don't meet them, I think you're going to lose that friend. So that's a really important thing. So then I thought to myself, gee, Stella, what if we change the environment? And I love how you said you thought about that running one day, because you think about things, right? And you get these great ideas, and then sometimes I forget them. But this one I remembered. I thought, why don't we try to change the environment? What if we do something that makes the environment almost forcing people to do better and to eat better? So it takes very, very little for us to change our body weight. So a really famous researcher named Jim Hill out in Colorado, that state that stayed blue forever, right? He said you only need to change energy balance by about 100 calories a day, minus about 100 calories per day, and you can pretty much decrease body weight, or at least not gain weight. And I'll tell you, a lot of times when we write grants now, our goal is prevention of weight gain, not so much weight loss anymore, because it's so tough. So educational efforts have been great. Like they've been really wonderful, but maybe a passive intervention might be more effective. So I thought, hey, Stella, you're on a college campus. I don't always talk to myself like, say, hey, Stella, but just for your sake, I'm on a college. See, I'm just making sure you're still awake. That's all I'm doing. Okay. I don't know if you had too much wine now, or Jennifer Quinlan, one of my faculty, said she was trying to drink more wine so she didn't have to listen to me longer. So I understood that. So I thought, well, okay, we've got college campuses, we've got college dining halls. What if we make changes in the college and make them conducive environments? So we know, as much as I love exercise and I do exercise, that we know that exercise itself really helps to maintain our weight. Keep it down or maintain it, but it's the portion sizes. It's decreasing the amount that we take in that has been shown to be the most effective when it comes to weight loss. So what we did, and I always need to say we, because there's always a bunch of people involved, students and project managers, but that we evaluated the effect of serving smaller portion sizes in a university dining hall and in self-service areas on all of these parameters. Again, I will only highlight body weight and body mass index for you due to time and my focus here, but in college-age men and women across a 2-semester period. So when I got this grant, I actually got it when I was at UMass and moved it to Penn. I'm sorry I went back to this, but I just want to give you a little story. So my project manager moved with me, and we had to find a new university, because UMass, I had been there for like, whatever years, 10 or so years, And everyone, knew me, and it was great. It was easy going in the dining halls, and they were like, yeah, this is fine, you can do it. Well, then we had to find a university. So here I come to Philadelphia. All these universities around the area, you'd think we'd have like 10 saying they want to be a part of the study. Well, some of it was difficult because, for example, even Drexel, we couldn't come to Drexel because there's only one dining hall. We needed at least one control and one intervention dining hall. I haven't told you the design yet. But then we finally find a dining hall, and it's at Rutgers University. I kid you not, when we met with the food service director, Laura, I'm so not meaning to forget about you in my right-hand corner. And when I met with the food service director, I really was going to pee my pants because I thought, oh my gosh, he was making me so nervous. He's like, and if I hear one complaint, Stella, you're out of here. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like this is an NIH grant. I can't have one complaint. So I felt like I was in the principal's office. I'm thinking, okay. So, and then I looked to my project manager and go, May, if we hear one complaint, so as if, passing it down the lane, right? We always have to pass it down. So this is what it looked like, kind of, right? Beginning and end of every semester for 3 semesters, we took anthropometric measures, and mind you, not the best. We did skin folds and we did waist circumferences. We were actually doing this behind screens in the office in the dining hall. And then dietary intake, I'll talk to you all about this, energy expenditure, tray weights, and dining hall attendance. We did this, so 6 measurements over the basically 2-year period. And what did we do? We had one dining hall where we changed the portion sizes by about 20%. So, and then we had another dining hall that stayed the same. What was really cute about this is when we met with the food service managers, the food service manager in the control dining hall said to me, do you want me to increase the portion sizes? Oh, you guys, if I weren't so ethical. I was like so close to saying that would be great, Flo, but it didn't happen. I wouldn't dare do that, but it was adorable that she asked. I like to share these stories with you because, there's so many things we deal with in research on different levels that you sometimes think, oh, no, my research is perfect. Nothing ever goes wrong. So smaller serving sizes, and here's the other thing, that the food service employees did not know what we were doing. So their managers had to say, we're doing this for a reason of, we just want to see about cost. But think about it. They serve thousands of kids a day. So we couldn't change, like I was hoping we could get the pizza smaller, or couldn't we get smaller slices of cake? But the other thing is they're in a pattern, right? Like they're cutting these things. So they had to change that, but they had to also make it such that it wasn't too much out of their ordinary, if you know what I'm saying, right? So that they could still help us out. Self-service areas, which increased greatly compared to when I was in college. We had smaller utensils. And then but we couldn't prevent these students from still eating as much as they wanted, right? They pay for this. The students were totally blinded to this. They did not know we were doing this. They signed informed consent. It was all above board, but we did not want them to know this was a change. And so, as I just said, food service staff participants were blinded, and we also monitored the daily swipes so that we wanted to know. So if you all in the middle were in the intervention dining hall, and you went to there less than 85% of the time, we wouldn't want you in the study anymore. As much as we loved you, you weren't really the same, right? And then the control folks, we really didn't worry about as much, but we still got swipes from all. And God bless Rutgers, they gave us these big printouts and they'd cross out anybody who wasn't in our study, which was pretty impressive on their part. We did these things called process evaluation. And process evaluation just sort of reminds you that you're doing what you're doing as it should be done in a way. So it looks a bit at the integrity of the study. So we did tray weights 3 times per month, where we would have kids come in and we would see how much their trays weighed. We just wanted to see, okay, how much were they taking? And then we would walk through to ensure that the portion sizes were still remaining small. And there were a few times we had to talk to the food service managers to say, the portion sizes are getting just a little bit bigger. So 24-hour diet recalls were done twice per month, and students of mine called the students, which was really good, because then they were really honest, right? You hear, and they were honest with obviously their alcohol intake, which is high in calories. They were honest with everything, and that was really good to hear. Because those of us in nutrition also know the phone is good, because if you do get a shocking response, like I had 4 cakes in 4 hours or something, you are not allowed to show that like shocks you. You have to be like, oh, okay. So That's really good. But the cutest thing is the guys, of course, eat like hoagies at 2 in the morning, and they're okay with that. We measured step counts by, pardon me, yes, 1 week per month we measured their step counts. We gave them all little pedometers, just simple. And then they filled out this thing called the International Physical Activity Questionnaire. Simple ways because we were trying to make sure that their exercise level remained the same. We didn't want that to change. And then it was interesting because when we measured them, sometimes students would say, yeah, I need to lose some weight. And if they were in the control group, I'd be like, wanted to say, no, you want to gain weight. Of course I couldn't say that, and I wouldn't say that. But in your head, you're thinking, oh, no, we don't want you to do anything differently. So what did our sample size look like? They were between 18 to 20 years of age because, yes, we did accept transfer students in our study. We had a pretty much equal number of men and women in intervention and control. And this is what the race ethnicity looked like. You look at some of the data. For every 1% above your desirable BMI, the risk of coronary heart disease increases by about 3.5% for women and men, respectively. And for every kilogram of weight loss, you have these significant reductions in coronary heart disease and diabetes mellitus. And then for every kilogram of weight gain after high school, your coronary heart disease risk increases for about 6% for women and about 3% for men. So though our data were not statistically significant, I would argue that they are clinically significant because we showed changes that parallel what can prevent chronic disease. And I remind people that chronic disease is not called chronic because it happens and starts when we're 50, right? It's chronic because it started much younger than that. So what we're hoping, we did not power it statistically for sex differences, differences between sexes or, for example, BMI categories. Like we purposely did not recruit obese individuals. We purposely did not recruit student athletes. But next time around, we want to recruit folks of all different BMI categories, looking at different socioeconomic status and going a longer period of time. NIH has rejected me once already, but we'll get it. So we want to evaluate the different demographics, but we're really happy to see that that impacted some of the students as far as even though not statistically significant. And at this moment, as I see, I see Abby Define-Gilman and Emily Werner and Brianna Higgins, who are part of my Healthy Futures initiative that was funded by the Independence Blue Cross Foundation grant. I have no data to show with you on this, but I'm just sharing this with you that this is a study we're doing presently in the schools. We're making environmental changes to hope to prevent obesity in children, following them from 4th grade through 6th grade. So we're really grateful to the IBC Foundation, and we're hoping actually, we've just submitted another grant to them, Abby and I, to see if we can actually go further with another sort of round of slightly different interventions. So see, I hope I didn't bore you too long. I hope this helped give you a little bit of a snippet of some of the work I've done, because it's the work I know the best, which is why I shared that with you. And okay, that shouldn't be happening, because I keep going, I'm hitting the wrong thing. This is kind of nerdy, but I'm going to share it with you. I know, look at the German Shepherd on the left, yeah, on your right. As a message to our patients and the people, our participants with research, and even to ourselves, a healthy life really does begin with us and within us. And my students constantly hear me say, you need to practice with what you preach. You really need to make sure that when you go into that room with that patient that you're really saying to them, yes, this is what you need to do and this is going to help you and you're going to be healthy. And then this just takes, this is a slide I used for 100 years, not just because I love German Shepherds, but you could see the cat here. It all takes a little discipline, doesn't it, folks? So that discipline is really important. I won't share, okay, I will share with you. This would be my female because she knows the cat is there. My male has no clue that that cat is there. And that is not a sexist comment, really, Mark, it's not. Well, okay, sort of, but okay. I love to put my mom and dad up there. They've passed away, but I was talking to Bayadas, they both were from Italy. And the reason I put them up there is not just because they had such an impact on my life, but when it relates to nutrition, I was so blessed to grow up the way I grew up. I mean, food was celebrated. We had food from, gardens. Everything was fresh, everything homemade. So I feel so blessed with that. It was never a negative thing in my family. And so I'm just grateful to them for that and for teaching me so much, as they still do. And always like to end with these two little sweethearts. To the left is Bear, to the right is Sasha. They're both rescue German Shepherds. We're actually doing search and rescue work. And I really, really thank you all for listening to me, for putting up with my stupid jokes, and for really taking the time this evening to come and hear. And again, my thank you to the Bayadas for this. Thank you. I have one more thing. Gloria, thank you for inviting me to be the first. Oh, my boss. And for Laura and Wayne for doing all the behind the scenes, and Scott and Steve, I forgot to thank. I was like, I'm so embarrassed I forgot to ask her at the beginning. So thank her at the beginning. So thank you again. Thank you.
Stella, you were just terrific, and I'm not surprised at all. And I hope that every succeeding Bayada lecturer is as informative and as entertaining as you have been tonight. So thank you. So thanks everyone for attending. Thanks to Mark and Ann. And we will have dessert. Can we have dessert, Stella? We will have dessert and coffee out in the reception area. Thank you.